Good evening, everyone, and welcome to round number 4 of the Radical Race Series here at Sebring. Apologies for the small little delay in the start there. A couple of issues that we had with iRacing, but luckily everything is all sorted and we are now very much underway. My name is Daniel Handover, and joining me in the commentary box once again is Mr. Ewan O'Leary. Ewan, good to have you again with us. Certainly some interesting racing that we've had over the last few weeks, and Sebring is going to be no different, I'm sure.
Absolutely, it's been very American so far. We're continuing that trend as well as we hit the 1/3 mark of this championship already after this race here today at Sebring. As you say, it's a really bumpy circuit. I know we will be mentioning that many times, and I'm sure that's what everyone was expecting, to be honest, when they tuned in here or when they set out onto the race circuit anyway, these drivers. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge for everybody, but hopefully, as you say, the same good racing that we've had over the last 3 weeks.
Absolutely. We are just going through this before we jump into actually, I'll tell you what, let's jump into qualifying now, actually, because it is underway. And speaking of qualifying, it being a lone qualifying, we're just seeing some drivers now. So here we go then. Qualifying wise, Simon Edwards is in pole position currently as it stands with a 1 minute 52.45. It's quite a long lap. This is the full Sebring circuit. It is a full. It's a long old lap. Is the Sebring full, especially in a car like this. Even though this car is pretty fast, it does fall a little bit shorter when it comes down to some of the longer straights. But Simon Edwards leading the way with that 142.54, and then 4/10 down is Paul May. There is Paul. So certainly quite a relatively sizable gap to start with. However, though, when it comes to the second and third laps, as we've seen and as we know with this championship, the times, everything will start coming down a little bit. So overall, I think once we get the next set of laps in, of which a couple of people haven't actually set lap times yet, these gaps are going to come down.
Yeah, you would say so. Everybody else behind, of course, is going to get another opportunity, more and more opportunities to try and get a little bit closer to Simon Edwards with every lap that passes here. And of course, we've got some relatively big names as well yet to set a lap time, particularly the likes of Jamie Bird and James Child. You'd expect to be up there inside the top 5 or 10 or so. So they may well cause a bit of a surprise as well. But yeah, you'd expect everybody to be able to get a little bit closer, and Oliver Ettridge does just that, going to the front now.
He does indeed. The Midas-powered car, Oliver Ettridge, with a 152.2, so he's taken over a 10th out of. Then Austin Greterex goes up into second place. He then pushes down. Is that an identical? It is an identical time by 600ths of a second. Goes a little bit wide in turn 1 though, so that will be him. Unfortunately, that will be his lap gone. So yes, Dave Dowson just crossed the line as we just saw there. He's currently in P13. It's a couple of drivers, as you say, still yet to set a lap. One of them being Patrick Charlton is yet to come across the line, of which he will do in about 50 yards. Where does he go? He goes up into P9. And Jamie Bird, number 39, he comes down into Sunset Corner. I don't know if he's going a little bit slow or if that's just the way that the car looks. It looks like he's going... Oh, no, he is going full out. He is going flat out. The camera angle makes it look very, very straight. Again, it's a very, very small car and it's a very, very big circuit. But as he comes through, down through Sunset, it's very bumpy. This car will not be liking these at all. As he comes across the line, where does it put Jamie Bird? Puts him up into, actually, a time that was not counted. Must have got an off track somewhere on circuit. That'll be him, his lap gone. Unfortunately, Graham Brown goes up into 6th position. Good, respectable lap time there for Graham Brown, but at the front, so close. Absolutely fantastic. Simon Edwards' last lap was faster, and he has done a couple of purple sectors that I can see. I'm interested to see what times he is able to put on his third lap. You've got Oliver Ettridge that's going to come across the line for the third lap in about 2 or 3 seconds. So we'll see if there's an improvement for Oliver Ettridge. Keep an eye on that time. It's a 2:87 at the moment. Just about to come across the line, and does he improve?
Yep.
That he does.
Well,
albeit, I mean, it's marginal, but it's an improvement nevertheless.
Yeah, it's about 100th of a second, so it means 900ths of a second separate the top 4 at this stage. But is Simon Edwards going to maybe extend that a bit? He certainly is the first driver to go into the 151s. It's a 51.8, and Luke Maxwell also joins him in the 51s, but he's not able to quite get on pole. Looks like Edwards is going to just about take it.
Very, very good lap time by Simon Edwards there. A couple of drivers still yet to set their second lap times off. So we have Patrick Charlton's going to come across the line once again for his third lap. Is it going to be an improvement as he comes across the line? It is an improvement. He goes up into 8th place. So another movement there, another move forward for Patrick Charlton, which is very, very good indeed. Phil Jocelyn's going to come across the line for his third lap. Third and final lap. They have 3 laps each here. And it's remember, it is lone qualifying. Another couple of minutes. We've actually got a minute and a half left, and then we'll be going over to the race. Before then, we'll have a quick look at the championship standings, though. As Phil Jocelyn comes across the line, what is it going to be? Is it going to be improvement? It is... I think it was going to be a possible improvement, and then he actually got a little bit... I think there was someone that got ahead of him there. And he ended up staying in 15th place. Phil Glover is going to come across the line for his second lap as well. So where does Phil come across the line? And it is going to be... Goes up into... So that's 16th. We'll put him with that last lap. 154.6. So there's a little bit of time to find there by Phil, I'm sure. And that will come with time. Everyone... I don't think there's going to be anyone that's going to get another lap in. No, there is not. So we'll get you your grid results in a minute. But while we do that, so while we wait for that, let's have a quick look at the championship standings. If we bring them up here, we can see Simon Edwards, the only person with 3 digits on the board. Paul Crabb in second with 86, and Dom Lang-Webb in third with 75. Actually, joint with Luke Maxwell, I've just seen there. Interesting. John Hutchison, another joint 75. So, only third place, all being 75 points apiece there between Hutchinson, Maxwell, and Lang-Webb. So, even in these early stages, it's shaping up to be a very, very close championship.
Yeah, it is maybe even a little bit closer than what we've seen in previous seasons, actually, in 2022. Not entirely sure, but yeah, it just seemed to be that little bit close. Only 16 points at the moment. And the thing about Luke Maxwell that's so impressive is the fact that he's only actually done 2 of the races so far this season, and he's performing really well, as we're seeing here.
He absolutely is. Very, very true indeed. So, here is your starting order. Simon Edwards does indeed take that pole position with Luke Maxwell in second. Oliver Ettridge takes P3. Austin Greterex in P4, Paul LeMay 5th, Graham Brown, Scott Lear, Patrick Charlton, Mike Busson, Dom Lang-Webb is your top 10 with Darrell Taylor, Paul Clark, Martina Ward, Jamie Bird, Phil Jocelyn, James Child, Phil Glover, Dave Dowson and Guy Robertson will be starting in P19. A couple of drivers left to go on the grid and then we will be underway. Again, very, very tricky to really determine what's going to happen here. Again, it's a new track for the drivers. They wouldn't have had any practice, or they may have had some practice, obviously, but they wouldn't have been able to take anything really from last season. This car is a very, very different car to drive, as we have heard multiple times. Lights are about to go off. Who is going to get the jump? Is it going to be Simon Edwards? Is it going to be Luke Maxwell? It's Simon Edwards. He's got a good start, has Simon Edwards. That's going to give him a very, very good start going down into turn 1. He's going to take his normal racing line. It's about 5 wide, a little bit further back, though. How is everyone going to get through? They all manage it for the moment. As I say that... Who was that? I think that may have been Patrick Charlton and Paul LeMay that were getting involved in that. They're going to go 3 wide down, a little bit further back. It's all kicking off here. It's actually 2x2. Noah's Ark style as they go through. Jamie Bird is sitting there trying to make up some positions. Nearly came into contact there with Phil Jocelyn, but he manages to go through as they all now slot into single file. Very, very close start. And, well, I mean, coming down, this is one of the biggest braking zones here, down into the hairpin down at turn number 5. That's going to be Darrell Taylor. The goal! No, Darrell. That's not good.
No, not good at all. Just trying to defend a little bit there and make the overtakes and clatters into the side of somebody turning in for the corner there. Really unfortunate for the car that got spun around. I think it was Dom Lang-Webb he actually got into there, I'm afraid. That's going to be quite a lot of damage there for those two. But Paul LeMay and Patrick Charlton were the ones who went off there at turn number 1. It was LeMay going really quite backwards throughout the opening moments of that race there. Didn't get off to a great start, didn't have a good launch off the line, and so he really got himself into a bit of a melee in the middle of the field. Patrick Charlton was also involved in that one, and I don't know if he had a lot of damage after that initially, but he went straight back to the pit lane. I'm not sure if he's going to re-emerge from the pit lane in this race, but either way he is there now as this battle for 4th is really hotting up at the moment. Scott Lear briefly through into that position, although back down to 5th immediately, and looks like he might be outside the top 5 very soon.
Indeed so. This is going to be Mike Buston actually watching Scott Lee and Graham Brown. They're going to dice side by side down into Sunset for the first time. I've actually done a couple of races here in the Radicals just to get an understanding of the car, and it's a good fun car to drive in all honesty. The car is very, very sketchy on the first couple of laps. It then levels out in the mid, and then all of a sudden it gets really sketchy towards the end of the tyres drop off. So you've got to be very, very careful. We may see a couple of people there that struggle towards the end, especially if they are unable to manage their tyres. But Mike Buston, he gets a very, very good exit, very good drive down on the exit of one, but that's going to be a bit of contact between, I think, Scott Lear locked his brakes up in anticipation that he was going to hit Mike Buston, but it would be very, very well avoided there. And but unfortunately, he has dropped a couple of seconds. You can just see, just as he goes out of shot, you can see him back there. So a little bit further down the order, a couple of seconds away now from Mike Buston, but very, very good stuff indeed between the two. Couple of replays. Yeah, let's have a look at a couple of the replays, especially from the start. So as we go, it's a little bit further in front. We've got a bit of breathing room here. So let's have a look. This is one of the replays. So yeah, this is Dom Langweb, which you say just a complete passenger. There was absolutely nothing. Even the mirrors, everything. He would have been blindsided by that, in all honesty. Or if he did see it, it would have been so last minute that he wouldn't have been able to do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
sorry, exactly. He couldn't do anything there at all, really. Just looking in the mirrors. I mean, steering out of it, I suppose. But even so, you're going to hit the side of it of the car going down your inside, or you're going to go wide or something. So, yeah, he was in a real no-win situation at all. Dropped down to 15th. Well, he's back up to 15th now, I should say, after all of that. And he'll look to make his way back through the field again, because he has had some good performances so far this season, and he'll want to continue that on. But, yeah, not a good start to his race on this occasion, I'm afraid.
Unfortunately not. This is what happened. So Martina Ward, actually, there was a bit of contact with Martina Ward as well. Couldn't quite see who made the contact, but unfortunately, Martina Ward has dropped down the order a little bit. There was a move that I just saw on the timing tower, and I believe it was Scott Lear that passed Paul Clark. So let's see if we can get a replay of that very, very quickly. Did Paul Clark? No, so it's going down into Sunset. Again, a tricky corner, especially to overtake round the outside. But he manages to get it stuck. He doesn't actually take much of a different line compared to what he would normally take, in all honesty. So Scott Lear goes up into 7th place. We've got 17 laps around this circuit, so it is it's a long lap. So obviously, with when it comes to the racing, this is it's a slightly longer race anyway. I believe at this circuit. So yeah, when it comes to the actual racing between the guys. Very, very close. Oh, Mike Buston's had a spin. Locked the rears up. You just see perfect camera angle, in all honesty, for it. So you just see as the rears locked. That's as good as gone, unfortunately. That's the one problem. He gets a little bit involved in a bit of contact there with James Child, but manages to avoid any permanent damage to the car. And Mike, I think that is Phil Glover that's wanting to get involved a little bit as well. He tries to go on the outside. He can't quite do it, though. Got Martina Ward as well. Bringing up the rear for the moment in P13. There's certainly some battles going on here. A bit of a defensive line, I think, taken by Phil Glover. Doesn't lose any time because of it, though. I think Martina Ward may have was there might have been a bit of contact there between Martina Ward. She may have gone through and had a small little moment on the exit. Manages to keep it going, though, so in all honesty, there's nothing coming up for us on the tower as to why that actually happened. Whatever happened, it was quickly dealt with. Unfortunately, though, it does mean that Martina Ward has dropped another couple of positions, but all the more positions to then make up. Let's dive to the front, though, because have a look at this. Luke Maxwell is really pressuring Simon Edwards. There is the rear cam of Edwards' car, the number 52. Got Luke Maxwell, the 118, breathing down and hanging on the back of his gearbox. In all honesty, Oliver Ettridge isn't too far behind either. He's about 0.8 of a second. Whether he's doing that based on just tyre management or if he's unable to really catch up these two at the moment, be interesting to see how the latter develops and how the race does move on. Because Simon Edwards, we've had this conversation a few times with Simon, haven't we, Ewan, where he said that he's still not quite comfortable with the car yet, even though he took the win last week, and he's currently leading this race, having qualified pole, still not comfortable with the car.
Yeah, and it does take a little bit of time. You've got to remember how long they would have been driving the previous car for, and how they will have been getting accustomed to it very nicely and so on and so forth. It takes a bit of time to get that once again with the new car, but you feel that once he does get that, he's going to be absolutely away, as if he isn't already, really. He's already having a pretty good season, finally getting that win on the board last time out at VIR, I think it was, where he got his first win of the season. And so, yeah, he's in the right, he's on the right track now. But Luke Maxwell just behind is really getting to grips with this car very quickly as well here this season. He's had 2 races, as I mentioned earlier, and he's not been outside the top 2 so far, and things are looking good for him to be able to keep that record going for another race. So, yeah, it's all looking very good at the moment for Luke Maxwell particularly, but he'll want to obviously take that lead and take that win off of Simon Edwards in front of him.
Indeed, very much so. There's a little bit of battling. Mike Busson made a really, really good move going down into the halfway through the Paul Clark's having a little bit of issues there. We can see that's why he's blinking out on the timing tower. So that's not him blinking out in terms of position. That's just because of the connection issues. The timing tower gets a little bit confused. But yeah, great move for Mike Busson there on James Child. Very, very aggressive move, but managed to make it stick. And James Child hasn't been able to respond as of yet. Again, that could mean that he's using a bit more of his tyres up. We'll have to see as the race develops, have to see as the race goes on. And especially with this one as well, because bear in mind, this is 17 laps at a minute 50. Now, I'm, again, not necessarily going to be able to do the maths on it necessarily, but that probably means I'm guessing it's around about 35 minutes race here. So, maybe not that much actually, probably about maybe just a 32 minute race. So, a little bit longer than we are used to seeing around it. So that is going to play actually quite a substantial part, much more than the extended races we had last season. Because again, this car just seems to be a little bit more aggressive on its tyres, and they do start to wear a little bit faster.
Yeah, we have already had one of those supposed longer races in terms of laps earlier on in the season. I can't remember where it was, but wherever... Oh, it's off the road for Dave Dowson down at turn 10, I'm afraid. Just getting things a little bit wrong on the braking. I can't remember where we were for the second round of the season because I'm just losing my marbles and forgetting where I've been and whatever a little bit. But yeah, I mean, whatever that race that was, it was supposed to be a tiny bit longer in length in terms of laps as well. There was slightly more laps and a greater length of race on that occasion, but it didn't seem to really have a great effect on the race on that occasion. And while this race is relatively long, I suppose, but it's still going to be around about the half an hour mark, because we are just going under 2 minutes in terms of lap times here. It's going to be around the half hour mark, so not entirely sure whether we're really going to see tyre difficulties for these guys, because even when we spoke to Paul Crabb at the end of the first race, he did mention those tyre problems, but even as bad as they were, he said at the time, you know, he didn't expect the pit stops to really be a factor in these races. They're just not really long enough, even with the new tyres, to really warrant an actual pit stop.
Yeah, that you know, again, unless you're either... Well, there's two things that can happen. Unless they do a very, very drastic change in the tyre model within the car, within iRacing, there's not really going to be much in terms of adjustments there. So, you know, unfortunately, it's going to be... Yeah, there could be a potential pit stop strategy if there's restricted in terms of fuel usage, but tyre-wise, again, it's just these tyres will last. It isn't worth gaining the time that you would lose. I've just seen James Child has jumped into the pit lane. Not entirely sure why, and I believe actually he may have had an off. Let's have a look at a replay that we've got here. It's into turn 1. Yeah, just loses the back end. Again, it's a very, very tricky corner. I mean that car is unfortunately done. There certainly won't be anything that he'll be able to come back from that. He may get the car repaired and then come back out. Let's hope so. But yeah, again, turn 1, it's such a bumpy entry. In something like a GT car, even in an LMP2, the car's a bit longer, so it's actually not as I suppose difficult to enter into the corner, because this car is it's so much of a smaller blueprint that when you do go over the curbs, or even when you go over, like I said, turn 1 or sunset the last corner, this car is, unless you get the car hooked up and you get it pointing in the right direction, it's very difficult to change mid-corner. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just what happened for James Child. Just understeered a little bit wide, and then whether there was a brake adjustment, released the brakes, and then the rear came around. Hard to say, but that looked like what happened to me. It's just a balance change in the car, possibly in the braking or steering adjustment, and it just sends the car around. So we may see that towards the end of this race. especially in the likes of Sunset, because it's such a long corner and it's bumpy as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was very wide there for whoever that was. I think Darryl Taylor it was. Yeah, I don't even know. I think he might have even hit the inside wall, James Child, in that one. I'm not entirely sure. Couldn't really get a close look at it myself, but I think he might have touched the wall on the inside, which sent him to the outside wall eventually. And the new damage model just surprising me a little bit with the whole rear end just completely decapitating itself, I should say. And there it is, just lying on the ground next to him. He goes back to the pit lane. Well, really to get a view here. Did he hit the inside wall, or did he just lose the car on the way through the corner? Those two cars in front aren't really close enough to really distract him on the way up here. That's not really a factor, but the inside wall certainly would be. Oh no. Oh well, I think we were kind of both right. He was losing it on the way in anyway, and then he did hit the inside wall, and then it was all wrong from there. So it was kind of a combination of everything going wrong there.
Unfortunately so, yeah, as you say, you know, it's a good spot actually there to the fact he did hit the wall, because I didn't notice that, so very, very good spot. What's going to happen here, though? Mike Busson, he's certainly a man on a mission at the moment. That's very, very close. He wants to... Oh, that was close. That was really close there. Fair play to both of these guys. Managing, you know, to respect and race cleanly, I think, as well. So really, really good stuff. Who's had a moment there? Graham Brown has had a moment coming on the exit of, that looks to be Le Mans, second to last corner. It's a tricky corner that as well. It's a bit bumpy. I reckon the way he entered, or the way where he was, I'm going to take a guess and say that he jumped over the curb on the inside, maybe put two wheels over, and that caused the car to spin around. I'm going to suggest that's what happened. We'll go look at that replay in a minute. I want to see what happens here, because this is going to be a very, very good battle. We see Mike Busson, he hasn't got a run going down into one, but if he can maintain momentum... Actually, no, he's going to send it into turn one. That's a brave move. Can he make it stick? I think he's going to, but he's going to be slower on the exit. So he has got the move, but look at Paul Clark. Is he going to try and make a lunge down into three? No, he doesn't. So he manages, and Mike Busson makes that move. Very, very good. Last minute send going into the into turn one. It is quite a wide corner, so Paul Clark did the right thing, just held around the outside, took a slightly wider line on entry, and lived to fight another day. If you try and take your normal line and someone's on the inside, there's a pretty good chance, especially in this car, the front will push wide. So now that that move is done, let's see what happened with Graham Brown. I could be completely wrong here, but that just seems to be what I would suggest happened. So again, what does he do on the entry into the corner? Oh no, he just loses. Ah, well there you go. Loses it on the outside. Grass. Yep.
It's the outside. So he got really bumpy on the outside of that corner. You do kind of want to take that line here, go to the left-hand side. It's nicknamed the iRacing line a little bit because it's not really very common anywhere else. But has a big slide on a bump out there, and then it gets out into the grass and goes for a spin. Yes, either one of two things really that's going to happen through there, as long as he's on his own anyway. If he was with another car, then any number of things that can happen. But Simon Edwards is doing a bit of weaving around down the... oh, goodness me. The Ormond Straight, there it is. Down towards Sunset Bend. That was deep in my memory there. He's just weaving around it. It does show that he is thinking about Luke Maxwell just in behind there. He is worried about that one, wary of that car behind. He does feel under pressure ever so slightly as well if he's trying to break the slipstream going down into the final corner, because it's not a glaring overtaking opportunity, although none of them really are here at Sebring. Maybe the hairpin kind of is, but it's not a great overtaking opportunity either. So it does show that he is a little bit concerned about that car in behind, and he's just making a few moves to defend here. I do reckon it's not long before we see the first real fights between the two of them, because Maxwell does look quick enough to at least have a go.
It's a good point. As you say, there isn't probably going to be too long before we see that car at least, again, have an attempt at a move, or at least, you know, a bit of a battle anyway. So we'll have to see how that goes, as you say. But, you know, all in all, still pretty respectful from everyone, in all honesty. I think people have been, you know, I don't know if, it seems to be a little bit, I'm not going to say cleaner, obviously, but I think while people, again, are getting used to these cars a little bit, there seems to be a little bit more conscious, people seem to be a little more conscious in terms of the moves they want to make as they get to grips with the car. I'd imagine as the season goes on, there'll be a few more, people will start to get a little more confident in what they're able to do within the car. So you might see the moves and aggression being amped up a little bit towards the end. Although in saying that, now people, again, Mike Busson, he's made some really strong overtakes this race, so he seems to have got to grips with the car pretty early on, as you know, a few other drivers have. But I'd imagine we're going to see that gradually increase as the race progresses. So Simon Edwards, once again, weaving his way down. He's not actually weaving. So when it comes to weaving, it's one of those things that...
Yeah, it's not illegal, is it? It's just...
No.
It's just kind of breaking the slipstream.
Yeah, it's breaking the slipstream. If he was weaving from side to side and consistently like all the way down the Allman Straight, it's something you could know technically still not necessarily illegal because you're not blocking, but it's a little bit more frowned upon. But one little weave, one sort of move side to side of that is absolutely fine. Graham Brown recovering from his earlier spin a few laps ago, getting past Paul Clark, going into Sun. Again, I just love that livery. What a livery that is. It's just such a... It really works with this car. It really, really does. Mike Busson has had a moment. He's entered the pit lane. I'm not entirely sure. Pit stops, I'd imagine. Yes, sorry.
Yes.
So pit stops, why? So Mike Busson, one of the first drivers to pit. Very wide for Graham Brown, though. Carried a little bit too much speed, and he's going to try and be an absolute madman and try and go around the outside of turn 3. Not necessarily the easiest move to make, and he doesn't quite manage it. So, yeah, pit strategy-wise, that's another thing we want to talk about. Now that the pit strategies have started to happen, ideally, in all honesty, you want to go as late as you possibly can, and then, you know, because your fuel stop is going to be less. You won't have to take as much fuel on board as other drivers who will have to take more. It's not too much of a difference, but the likes of like Simon Edwards, Luke Maxwell. Now Luke, he's been sitting behind all of this time between Simon Edwards. I wonder, has he saved enough fuel to do an extra lap? Now, when it comes to the extra lap, that could be a little bit of time saved. That could be upwards of about half a second to a second saved in the pit lane. That could be the difference between P1 P2.
We're obviously discussing a lot about the tyres. Well, I'm not expecting these guys to have to take on any fuel here in this race, although I'm not sure. It kind of depends on a few things, really. First of all, whether they can make it or not is pretty crucial. If they can, then there's no reason for them to really have less fuel in the car unless they can fuel and change tyres at the same time with these cars. I'm not entirely sure whether they can or not, as off the road goes Phil Jocelyn, avoiding Graham Brown going for a spin there through Le Mans, and there's Jocelyn getting back onto the road again. Yeah, this is another spin at this corner that Brown is finding exceptionally difficult, and it's out wide again. Yeah. He's very wide, trying to get that run onto the Allman Straight. Jocelyn does a good job, actually, to defend, albeit he does lose a few seconds. But either way, it was great avoiding action, as we do now have the leaders in. Is it going to be Edwards getting out in front of Maxwell, or are we going to see a change here? Edwards is actually going to have a much shorter pit stop than Maxwell did, nearly 3 seconds shorter.
There we go. So there's your answer. No tyres were changed between there. However, it does mean that Simon Evans has got a 3-second lead on Simon. I'm not entirely sure why, unless Luke may have gone a little bit too far in the pits, and then he had to drop back down perhaps as well, and maybe he had to reverse the car a bit. That would be... But I can't see a reason. Maybe he just took a little bit too much fuel. Who knows? Maybe Simon Edwards hasn't taken enough fuel. That could also be something, because the gap between Maxwell and Etridge hasn't really changed all that much. So maybe Simon Edwards has been a little bit zealous with the amount of fuel that he's put in. So maybe he's not putting enough. We'll have to see. I can't see necessarily that being the case, but you simply never know. So that gap, well, it's 2.8 seconds already, so it is coming down. Again, I think this gap here, you know... Luke Maxwell, unless he was playing it very, very conservative on the tyres, didn't seem like it, once he got about that half a second behind, he couldn't really make any more progress apart from that, as the car was seeming, for me anyway, I don't know about yourself, Ewan, that may change. Maybe he was just being a little bit more, a little bit less aggressive on tyres, and we may see that. Scott Lear I think Scott Lear's run out of fuel. Why do I have a suspicion?
Yes.
Yes, car was, yeah, we go. That's unfortunate, because I thought, well, he was making another, he was doing another lap, wasn't he? So I did think he would have jumped up a couple of positions there because of the amount of fuel that he would have been able to save on board. Another lap. It's surprising how much you can save in a, if you do an extra lap in terms of time. So, unfortunately, didn't come to fruition there for Scott Lear, and that will put him, unfortunately, down the latter half of the field.
Yes, it will. I'm kind of surprised to see these, unless I completely missed something that has changed for this race. I'm very surprised they even have to take on fuel unless they've suddenly become limited in the amount of fuel.
I'm pretty sure they're
they can actually take.
There's a restriction on the fuel.
Okay, so yeah, I didn't know that, but I don't know how. But anyway, yeah, that's a thing that we now have to contend with, and it's something that's certainly got Simon Edwards a great lead in this race. One that doesn't really look like it's going to be closed.
Well, not at the moment, at the end of the day. I've just noticed as well, Dom Lang-Webb, remember that incident at the start with Dom Lang-Webb? I mean, again, qualified in P10, he's up into P7. Phil Jocelyn, went a little bit wide, so he's been pressured by Phil Jocelyn a little bit. But, again, another impressive performance there from Dom Lang-Webb, considering where he is in the championship. Really, really good. He's gone a little bit wide, though, going into turn 1. What has happened there? I think he just went a bit too deep. Maybe the car tried to switch on him a little bit there, so Phil Jocelyn really, really pressuring him at the moment. But a very, very strong performance from Dom Lang-Webb. And they have pitted as well, so everyone now has made a pit stop that I can see here. So what that does mean is... Yeah, so it is now just fighting for position. This is the closest battle we currently have on your screen now between Dom Lang-Webb and Phil Jocelyn. We'll have to see how this does develop. But Phil Jocelyn's made up 7 positions as well. So we started P15. He's made up 18. Austin Greatorex, out of all of this, has also made his pit stop. And he's now got past Oliver Ettridge. I wonder if that was a move that we didn't necessarily see. I'm going to see if I can find a replay of that. I believe the reason why is because of this here from Oliver Ettridge. Just gets on the throttle too aggressively and manages to keep it out of the barrier. But unfortunately, he's dropped 4 seconds off of Greatorex now.
Yeah, and he was in front before, I'm pretty sure. So,
he was indeed, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So they were pretty disappointing him to lose a podium in that way. Still 5 laps to go as they come across the line here, but yeah, there's the gap is quite large between the two. So yeah, basically the only battle going on is that one for 7th place at the moment. It looks like it's going the way of Lang-Webb fairly convincingly here at the moment, and this is the problem a little bit with the fuel limit and making everybody make a pit stop. It's kind of an extra thing to go wrong and an extra thing that can spread the field out even further. Although Luke Maxwell might just save us here later on in the race, really giving it to Simon Edwards. Once he's gotten into clean air, he has looked a little bit quicker, it has to be said. He gained about 0.8 of a second on that last lap on Edwards, their first lap out the pit lane, as Greatorex gets things really wrong, and that's a lap car right behind him, but Ettridge is not too far behind.
No, he's not. He's only, He's only 2 seconds away. Graham Brown was having a bit of a look there, wasn't he? He wanted to try and get back past. I don't think he'll be able to now. I think Greatorex will have the pace on him. You can see he's already pulled about half a car length. So yeah, Oliver Ettridge, he's not too far behind. So another error from Greatorex, and that will put Oliver Ettridge straight back in contention for a podium position. Interesting comment as you made about Maxwell. Yes, it does seem that he does have pace when he's in a bit of clean air. So maybe the dirty air at someone like Silverstone is paying... you pay a bit more for being in dirty air, perhaps. Or again, could just be he's looking after tyres. Austin Greatorex get another moment. What a save there, though, from Greatorex. Manages to keep it in check. But all of a sudden, there is Oliver Ettridge. He's within a second. He's 7/10 behind now. So he is going to get some slipstream from the back of the number 14 Porsche Sport Radical. So at the moment, do you see what I was saying about tyres? This is where now the tyres will start to go. So people haven't taken tyres. Again, it's not worth that. But you do have to be careful. This is what I was noticing. Towards the end of the lap, or towards the end of the race, all of a sudden, the tyres start to degrade quite aggressively. With this extended race distance, it's going to be even worse. So it will be interesting to see what Greatorex is able to do, because his tyres will be a little bit hotter now. So he had to drive probably even for the next couple of corners into the braking zone, down into the hairpin. He will have to drive a little bit more conservatively. Otherwise, I saw that from Ettridge there. Another moment, he's dropped a couple of tenths there. So it seems to be that Greatorex isn't the only one having problems. Ettridge is, well, you can see he's pushing the car, can't you? He wants this podium position back, catches all Constantina's up into the hairpin. But yeah, it swings and roundabouts between these two at the moment. They're jostling and dropping tenths here and catching tenths up in the next corner. So this may be a gap that stays around about this for a while.
It may well be. It's not going to stay like that much longer, because Ettridge has gone for a spin. We're going to probably see a similar spin for Martina Ward here as well. I see just going sailing into that corner, way too much speed, and a big spin there for her, I'm afraid. So we'll get back going again, but not ideal. This is even less ideal for Oliver Ettridge, though. Just overstepping the mark ever so slightly, and it really doesn't take very much in these cars. You can really upset them very easily. Just taking a tiny bit too much speed into any corner really will set you around completely, and that's unfortunately what has happened there. I'm turning my attention a little bit to the two leaders with still 3 laps to go here, I know, but they matched each other pretty much like for like on that last lap. Simon Edwards is consistently in the low 53s. Maxwell was in the 52s earlier, and he is again now in the high 52s, but so is Edwards. He's just picked up his pace slightly, and it looks like he's going to be able to hold him off at 1.5 seconds, although there's still 3 laps to go.
There is indeed, yeah. So Simon Edwards, only less than a tenth between the two in terms of pace. So if Edwards keeps up this pace, then that won't necessarily be the case. Apologies to Oliver Ettridge there, because I feel that there was a bit of commentator's curse from me there. So I am sorry about that. But a little bit further down the order, Paul LeMay just goes past Phil Glover. That's going down through Bishop Bend. Manages to get the move. I mean, that was relatively easy. I wonder if Phil Glover had a bit of a slow exit. That would be my guess, in all honesty. It didn't look like you don't overtake someone that quickly going down from out of tower there. So that would be my guess as to what happened. Up a little bit further ahead, Dom Langweb and Phil Jocelyn. Still, the positions stay the same. This is the battle for P6. At the moment, nothing happening as of Jamie Bird's had an incident. I think Jamie Bird's had a crash, and that has dropped him down. So that's why now the battle for Dom Langweb and Phil Jocelyn has gone further. A quick look. Let's have a quick look here. Here is Jamie Bird. So it's going into sunset. Here.
I think he just comes into the pit lane here. Oh no, oh you're right, there's been an incident. Did he hit the wall? Oof. They got away with it. What I saw earlier on from Jamie Bird, though, after only 5 laps in this race, he came into the pit lane for the first time. Not entirely sure why, whether there was damage. You can see the rear wing is hanging off there, so he would have had to repair that anyway. However, it was only 5 seconds in the box there, so clearly whatever it was didn't take very long at all. Yeah, I was expecting him to need another pit stop in this race anyway, as Dom Langweb also makes a bit of a mistake. Just a spin out the hairpin. He does lose a place to Phil Jocelyn, and Martina Ward's off again, I think, there, and loses out to Paul Clark. Here's Scott Lear recovering from running out of fuel earlier on, of course.
Is it going to be another? Yeah, just the rear coming around. This is the problem. When the tyres really start to go, the rear is the one that comes first. In all honesty, what I would certainly be trying if I were to be racing now, which I may do a couple more races this week, because Sebring's a great combination with this, I feel. I would be looking to move the brake bias a couple of clicks forward towards the end, just to try and get the car to work a little bit more. Because the last thing you want to do is to have as much rear bias for the rear to then come around. Because that seems to be the breakaway first. It is that rear.
I think it would help slightly, especially on the brakes. But what a lot of these spins that we're seeing, and this is Martina Ward here. See, this is not under braking. That's just a run off the road down here at turn 10, which Edwards and Maxwell are going to go through now. Some of them are under braking, a little bit of rear locking and so on, but a lot of them just on turning and through the mid part of the corner, just losing the rear end. Because as I said earlier, less downforce on these cars now. You need to really kind of take it at the maximum speed possible. But if you are kind of even 1 mile an hour too fast going through a corner, the car's going to completely step away from you. Not even slightly to a point where you can save it, but wildly out of control. So you really need to be very careful. You need to run it right up to that real limit that these cars have through the corners, but not over that limit, because you will really cost yourself a lot of time. So moving the brake bias forward would help a little bit, but I think it's going to take a lot more than that to stop these cars from spinning wildly out of control as they have been recently.
Indeed, yeah. I think, again, the more that people get... Why is Simon Edwards in the pit? Has he not got enough fuel?
Has he underfueled?
Oh, no.
Has he underfueled?
Let's be honest, the gap, as I mentioned, the gap is... The gap was very, very extended, quite a considerable amount between Maxwell and Edwards, but it wasn't between Maxwell and Ettridge. Or unless he's got a possible drive-through. No, he does come into the fuel. I'm guessing it's going to be a very, very quick stop. I'd like to see how quick it is. Yeah, it must have been fuel. Absolutely got to be fuel. Such a shame for Simon Edwards. Such a shame. I think Mike Buston's going to get him as well as he comes down. Yeah, Mike Buston will get him. So Simon Edwards drops down into P... I mean, considering he's had to do an extra pit stop, P5 is still respectable, certainly. But Luke Maxwell, I mean, he's got half a lap to go. He just needs to keep it clean. He's got a 15-second gap between himself and Austin Gretorix, who has now inherited second, of which Ettridge has now inherited third again. So everyone has moved up from P4 up. Yeah, I mean, Luke Maxwell, a 15-second gap to P2, I certainly wouldn't be complaining at that.
No, absolutely not. Maxwell is having a great record in this championship here at the moment. Of course, a couple of drop rounds to take in terms of the standings, which is going to help him out massively with one of those non-starts, as Gretorix just makes his way off the road slightly. But yeah, he's had great consistency since he joined first, second, and then first again here at Sebring, it looks like today, and he's going to move to within 13 points of Simon Edwards' championship lead, which is going to be restored, and it is actually going to grow in size. Well, actually, it is going to be slashed slightly, but it's going to be a different driver in that second place because Paul Crabb, two-time champion, is not here today, unfortunately. He will likely take this race as one of his drop rounds as long as he returns for the coming races. But Luke Maxwell will certainly be returning, given the form he's on at the moment. It's going to be another win for him.
Indeed, so one more corner to go. Luke Maxwell taking round 4 victory here. A very, very good race indeed. You can see he's quite happy, and as you would expect, manages to win by 17 seconds on Austin Gretorix. Again, big shame for Simon Edwards there, dropping down, unfortunately, with that additional pit stop into 5th place. But yeah, Maxwell, really, really good form this first quarter of the season, of which we are, not even a quarter, a third of the way through the season. We have 12 rounds, remember, so, you know, 2/3 of the way left to go, but it's certainly looking like Maxwell and Edwards are the two people that are really, really shining at the moment. Even though Simon Edwards still isn't quite happy, he has managed to take a win, and he's got, well, you saw the pace that he had in this round. So, even though he's saying the car isn't working, it seems to be working for him in a way that might not necessarily be to his liking, but he is making it work nevertheless. Bison Edwards, 4th and 5th. Jocelyn comes across the line in 6th. You can see we'll get you your full grid in a minute. We may have a chat with Simon Edwards. We'll see We'll see if time allows and if he is able to jump in with us. But obviously we'll be chatting with the top 3. But yes, an interesting race with this additional race. I don't think tyres may not have had a big of an impact as I thought they were going to. In the sense, I thought we were going to have a little bit more where drivers would be struggling a little bit more with tyres. But I think people have now got the gist of the tyre management. I think people are able to comfortably go with that. Yes, people have obviously had some incidents and spins, etc. But in all honesty, I think when it comes to the actual, when it comes to tyre management, I think people have got the general concept of how this car behaves with when the tyres come towards the end.
I mean, generally, with the with racing in general, really, even if it's not comfortable towards the end, you do tend to want to stretch out those tyres as long as possible, especially in a race as short as this. So while it's not ideal, and the tyres will certainly not be as quick as they were at the start, and while getting in for new tyres does seem very tempting, you're just never going to make up that amount of time, even at the shortest pit lanes, of which Sebring maybe would be counted as one. It's certainly not a long pit lane here. But even so, you will never dream of taking tyres here at this circuit. So you're going to struggle towards the end of these races, but you're still going to persevere with it, and you're still going to go to the end with these older tyres, because that's just the fastest way of doing it, as it tends to be in racing in general. So yeah, it's just something for these guys to sort of try and manage throughout the day, really, rather than think about trying to change.
Very much so, yes. Very, very true. So everyone now has crossed the line, which means we will be able to get you your official finishing results here. In fact, here they come now. So Luke Maxwell taking the win, 17 seconds ahead of Porsche Sport driver Austin Gretorix. Oliver Ettridge in 3rd, Mike Busson in 4th. Simon Edwards takes P5 with Phil Jocelyn 6th. Dom Langweb 7th, Paul Clark in 8th. Martina Ward takes P9 with Jamie Bird in P10. Paul May 11th, Graham Brown in 12th, finishing a lap down, as Phil Glover did also. Scott Lear in 14th, Jem Child 15th, Darrell Taylor 16th, and then Dave Dowson P17. Patrick Charlton not able to start the race, and neither was, that was Guy Robertson as well, also not starting the race. So now that we've got the drivers, we should have a couple of drivers in the commentary box waiting to be interviewed. In but a few moments' time. And in fact, we do have, I believe, Luke Maxwell with us. So, Euron, would you like to have a quick chat with Mr. Maxwell?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that. Luke, welcome to the commentary box. Good to have you here after another win here in the Radical Race Series. How does that one feel after this race here at Sebring? Obviously, trying to challenge Simon Edwards, but his pit stop in the end, handing that one to you. Does it feel as sweet as the first one, or maybe tinged a little bit because Edwards did have to pit after all?
Yeah, a bit of a gift, but it still feels very sweet. I'm still quite pleased with that. So yeah, more than happy. It was a tough race there. I think it was, it's a very bumpy track, and you kind of, well, as I was pushing in the last few laps to try and keep the gap, I overfueled, and obviously Simon underfueled a bit. But I was really trying to push towards the end to get under a second or so towards the end. But the more I pushed, the more dangerous it became. So I was very relieved when he pulled into the pits.
Yeah, you mentioned the fuel there. What kind of changes does it make to the way you have to race at these races now, having to actually make that pit stop throughout now? You mentioned they're slightly overfueling, obviously the calculations are obviously something that you have to get right, but does it change the way you maybe face these races and race these races a little bit?
I think it depends how quali goes and where you start. I mean, once Simon got a lead there, and obviously I think the guy behind us was pretty close as well. So I was just trying to maintain the gap and really try and save the tyres, to be honest, thinking, let's just put a little bit of pressure on, but not do anything silly. It's a long race, and hopefully Simon might cook his tyres a bit, and there'll be a chance later on. Was my hope, but as we came out of the pits, I think he was 3 seconds ahead of me. So it was a big gap to try and make up at that point.
Absolutely. You managed it in the end. And one final thing as well is about the tyres, of course. We've talked about them quite a lot. Is it really a struggle for you guys to make your way through these races with one set of tyres? Is it something you're really noticing towards the end of these races?
It's not wear so much. I think it's just temperature. For me, it's probably run my brake price quite low, and the rears get hot, and you got to be careful, coming into the corners or dropping down a gear too early, and you can lose the rear, really easily. So I think for me, it's probably temperatures that you're trying to manage that really throughout the race more than wear.
Absolutely, fair enough. Well, first of all, congratulations on another win here tonight. Thanks very much for coming to join us, and we look forward to seeing you again over the next few weeks.
Brilliant. Yeah, keep it going. Cheers, guys. All the best.
Thanks very much there. Luke Maxwell, winner here at Sebring there, Dan, with a great drive here today.
A very, very good drive, as you say. Yes, indeed. We are now going to have a chat, I believe, if we can. We haven't got Austin Gretorix with us as of yet, so what we're going to have we're going to have a chat instead with Mr. Oliver Ettridge. Ollie, hopefully you can hear us. Really, really good stuff. Obviously inheriting a podium position there with Simon Edwards, unfortunately, running out of fuel. Talk us through that race. So there's a couple of little moments that we had, but all in all, a pretty good race, I would suggest.
Yeah, the first half of the race, everything was going fine. I could see Austin was catching me quite quickly, so I decided to try and do the undercut, but unfortunately that didn't work out. And then second half of the race, the tyres, I think, just overheated, and once you spin once, you spin 5 times apparently. But yes, I think inherited the podium is definitely the right phrasing.
Well, I mean, considering
for Simon.
Well, it certainly was, again, really, really big shame there for Simon Edwards. But, I mean, while you did inherit the podium, at the end of the day, you've still got to be in a position where, you're in a position to inherit a podium. So, all in all, a very, very good performance nevertheless. Just diving into that a little bit more with tyres, I know this has been an issue. Well, it's not an issue, but this is a very, very... seems to be a common theme when it comes to the new tyre model, or the version 7 tyre model, is that as the tyres start to get a little bit hot, if you do spin them once, you really, really have to take it easy. Are you noticing that more in this sort of car with the fact that it is a very, very newly released car, or is it something that you've sort of noticed just generally?
Yeah, no, I've especially noticed it with this car compared to the SR8 in particular. Yeah, I think around lap 15 I tried to back off for a lap, but it was too little too late, and yeah, I think once you've lost the tyres, they're not coming back to you. But it's something we all need to learn with this car, so hopefully by the end of the season we'll have got on top of it.
Indeed. Well, hopefully, Oliver, we'll have a catch up with you later on in the season. But again, very, very well done on P3, and yeah, obviously we'll hopefully speak with you in similar circumstances next week.
Thank you very much.
There we go, Oliver taking P3 there. Now, let's have a quick chat. We do now have Austin Gretorix with us. Austin, good to catch up with you. First time we've spoken actually for a while. I know we've spoken to each other previously in the past, so good to catch up with you again. First off, how are you finding these radicals? Because it's probably a fair different, much of a different drive from the Porsche Cup cars that you're used to driving.
Yes, good evening, Dan. Yeah, very different. This is my first actual racing one, and I'm just looking back now. I did 9 laps in practice and 3 qualifying laps, so my biggest issue was tyres.
I think that's a common thing. That is a common thing. In terms of tyres, did you feel the point at which they completely gave up, or is it a progressive, just sort of drop off in the tyres?
I made a few little mistakes in the first stint before pitting, trying to push to close the gap. I had a bit of a bad lap one where they were cold tyres, and then pushing, made 2 little self spins, and then probably the last 5-6 laps, the tyres for me just overheated and nothing. I turned in the rear, but try and overtake me.
Yeah, I think, and that's something, considering you didn't have much practice, I'm sure you'll start to get used to that as you go. But in terms of the car itself, I mean, how are you finding the car in general? Is it a car? I mean, obviously, as you're here, certainly I would suggest that you're enjoying it. But yeah, what's been your sort of first impressions in the car after being with it for a few laps?
I love it. It's very different to obviously the old Radical that a lot of us knew and loved. But no, it's a different challenge that I'm really enjoying actually.
Good. Well, hopefully we're going to see you, like I said, in similar circumstances later on, and hopefully, on the podium and potentially even a win on the car. So I look forward to catching up with you later on in the season. And yeah, again, really, really well done on P2, and hopefully we'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Cheers, Austin. There we are, Austin Gretorix, P2. Really, really good performance there again. So, what we're going to do is we're going to have a very, very quick chat with a couple more drivers to go. Ewan, would you like to have a quick catch-up with Simon Edwards? Because he is in the commentary.
Yes, let's do that indeed. Simon Edwards joining us now. Welcome to the commentary box. Maybe not the circumstances you would have liked to have been talking to us, but either way, it's another top 5 for you here today. Just talk us through the kind of decision to come in. I guess you had no choice other than to come in before that final lap, I'm guessing. Simon, just what happened to you?
Yeah, I just used half a lap more fuel in the first stint without realising it. So when I put what I knew was a good amount, but only just in, it wasn't. It was half a lap short. So I was trying to initially try and get it back, but I just couldn't get half a lap back. So I gave up in the end and put 2 litres in it. And even that was too much.
It's always the way. It's always the way. Just talk us to us a little bit about how the field kind of changes these races, because certainly in my time here over the last 3 seasons or so, I've not seen fuel be a real factor in these races. It's not been limited before, and it's not been a race where you've had to stop before. So does it change maybe the way that you race these races? Does it kind of add an extra level of complexity to these races?
Yeah, it does. It's a nice change. We have done it before, so it's not new. But I don't think we did it last season, which is probably what you're remembering. I think we're meant to do it twice in a year, just a longer race. If it was me, I'd have it an hour. I'd just keep going. But maybe not on these tyres at the moment, because they're a bit iffy. When once you start getting those rears heated up. So, but I was really enjoying that race. Luke was probably, I think he had a few tenths on me, but I was just getting in front of him enough in the right places, apart from the last corner where he was much better than me.
It was a great fight between the two of you, and unfortunately it didn't last to the line for you there, but there's always next week, of course, and I'm sure we'll see you there. For now, though, congratulations on another top 5, Simon, and thanks very much for coming to talk to us once again.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thanks very much. Simon Edwards there, 5th place here today at Sebring.
Indeed, very, very good stuff, and you can't argue. All things considered, considering you had to make another pit stop. We are going to have a chat. One final driver with us today is the wonderful, fantastic Phil Glover, as always, joining us in the commentary box. Phil, we started off, we qualified in P17, ended up P13. We had a good old race, to be fair. We were getting involved in some good action. So, talk us through it. I think, it seems to be going well for us.
Well, I don't know about that. Your build-up was good, though. I like that. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a few mistakes going around, and then I made the fatal error. So it's not just the top guys like Simon. I made the mistake of putting not quite enough fuel in, so I had to come back in again to put more fuel on in the last lap.
Yeah, I did wonder.
So
some positive taken, though.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hit anybody. Nobody hit me, so that's all good. And the thing is, when you know you're running out of fuel, and then you're trying to work out, am I going to make it or not? You kind of, your eyes off the ball, isn't it? You're thinking about other things. So I think that caused me to make a few silly mistakes. I think I went off a couple of times actually on the run up to taking fuel again. Yeah,
I as you said, it does take you off the ball, especially again if you're driving plus doing this plus you can see why engineers are becoming more and more popular, but and why they are handy to be able to give you those calculations like that, even just other teammates and whatnot. So yeah, doing it yourself a little bit can get a little bit busy at some point. But again, overall, I think all things considered, again, some good points. You have some really, really good battling throughout the race. So it seems to be every single race there's some good takeaway points.
Well, yeah, and if you were only talking to the frontage grid, it would get a little bit boring, wouldn't it? So I like to keep everybody grounded.
It's always nice to catch up with you. Always nice to catch up. But yeah, another strong performance, all things considered. So very, very well done. And we look forward to catching up with you next week.
Absolutely. Thanks as always, Daniel. Take care, boys.
Take care, Phil. There we go, Ewan. That is it. Round done and dusted. Round number 4 is all wrapped up, and round number 5, obviously a week away. And when it comes to Sebring, one of the 2 extended races that we are going to have this season presented some challenges, certainly. But next week, though, Red Bull Ring. Interestingly enough, now Red Bull Ring, that's very much a slipstream circuit, especially with from the 3 long straights that are there. But it's also got the very, very fast infield section as well. So there's going to be some good racing, I feel there.
There is. I think these radicals are going to really like that midpoint as well, the middle section and the final couple of corners as well. Very fast corners, although there aren't very many of them around that circuit. So it's going to be a very interesting race indeed. And as I said at the start of the broadcast, we're already a third of the way through this championship now, which is quite remarkable, really. 4 rounds down, only 8 to go here in this season. And so it's really starting to take shape, and the Red Bull Ring is well placed for another good race here. So yeah, we look forward to that in 1 week's time, same place, and we'll be here again for the Radicals. But another great race here tonight at Sebring. We're finally done with, well, we're not done entirely with the American circuits. We've still got 1 or 2 more. However, we've got a trip to Europe to come before the next one.
We have indeed, very, very much so. But as you said, we do have to wrap up. Thank you all, as always, for watching. It's a pleasure to have everyone with us. Join us next week for Red Bull Ring, which is certainly going to be an interesting race at same time next week. Thank you to all the drivers, thank you to the organisers and the admin staff as well. But we look forward to seeing you next week. But until then, as always, take care, stay safe.